Welcome to another episode of Pink Candid. I am here with Munchkin. We are going to discuss the bias and bigotry I mentioned in our trailer. I mentioned this one to you, Munchkin, about the issue I've seen coming up a lot online where we've gotten far away from the your kink is not my kink and that's okay. And I want to kind of touch on that because I know you came up in this lifestyle the same way that I did with the logic that was a thing that we always heard.
Yes. And go ahead.
And it was a thing that I thought was important because it was a valid way to say, you know what, we all do this a little differently, and they're all good and valid and fine, and just because it doesn't work for me doesn't make it wrong.
Yes, and it's very disheartening when not only are, I am strong in my beliefs, I am strong in my faith, I am also strong in the relationship I have with my master. However, it's very disheartening when I see other, slaves, subs, what have you, asking for advice or asking questions along similar lines, and I see these very negative things being said to them or to myself, and it puts a very ugly face to it when nothing could be farther from the truth. And I feel like it kind of gives off this negative image for people looking on the outside in when, as I say, nothing could be farther from the truth. My submission has several layers to it. However, yes, one of them definitely is my religion and my faith. But there's nothing ugly there whatsoever. I believe that the Bible does tell me to submit as a wife and as a helpmate. However, along those same lines, the Bible also speaks of our husbands, our significant others, whatever, loving us as God loved the church. So that is love in its purest form.
And I said to him Master the other day, that the thing that bothered me and the reason that I wanted to kind of do this discussion is because I felt like I have been at this a long time, and I'm strong and I'm confident, and I can tell someone that there's something wrong, and that no, I don't believe in, as someone told me, the Bible says to beat your spouse, which is so far beyond what we believe, at all. But I worry that came up in a discussion with someone who was new, who was asking about this for the first time. And I thought to myself, she's not going to be confident in this enough. She's not going to be strong enough in this to say, no, you're simply wrong. And I worry that people are being turned off of it.
It puts those type of statements, I believe, come from people who are totally misinformed or only have bits and pieces of the information, and they form their own opinion and they run with it. And the fact of the matter is those statements are simply untrue. I don't believe anywhere that I've ever seen, and I've been at this for a long time, and I have a very religious upbringing. There's nothing that I've ever seen that would condemn, in the Bible or in our church or anywhere else, that would condole and accept, spouse beating or domestic violence in any way. And when they say things like that, they're reaching out, people are reaching out because they have questions or they want to know so at that point, they really don't know which opinion to listen to. They really don't know which opinion is true. And, when you've got these people that hear bits and pieces of information here and there, and formulate their own ideas and their own thoughts and put things together and really speak out of turn, it is very harmful.
I worry, I saw somebody essentially draw that comparison, and I said, no, what you're referring to, of course, is referred to, at least in my church, as exercising unrighteous dominion. And it literally speaks to an abuse of position or power or authority. And so not only do we not condone it, we absolutely condemn it, because that is unrighteous dominion, and that's simply not acceptable. The thing that gets me is that there's this assumption that religious submission is prone to abuse. And I want to be very clear that there have been cases wherein husbands exercise unrighteous dominion, wherein they used it as a cover for abuse. And I'm not going to even remotely argue that doesn't happen, because it absolutely does.
Yes, because that happens in every form of submission. Anytime someone is willing to turn over any amount of their free will whatsoever, there are always going to be people that want to pervert that want to use it against them or in the wrong way. But that's not the norm. That's not everyone, which is why I have such a problem with comments like that being made and opinions like that being shared, because it obviously is coming from someone who does not practice religious submission, does not, have the information that they need to obviously back statements like that up. And it gets under my skin. It's just, nothing could be farther from the truth. I'm not going to say that there are not cases that happen, because they are, but that's in all forms of submission.
I've been on the receiving end of someone who used kink and BDSM as a cover for abuse. It had absolutely nothing to do with religion in that relationship, just for the record, but it happens. And that was kind of my response to that, was to say, yes, I'm sure that there are people that abuse this form of submission, but there are people that abuse any form of submission. There are abusers out there, and we're no more vulnerable to it than anybody else. And in fact, I think we may actually be somewhat less vulnerable, simply because in a religious-based submission, there is an understanding. It speaks very clearly to the duality of it. Yes, we submit, but they are to love and protect us the way that God loves the church, and that is, as you said, purest form of love there is. And I don't think people really necessarily understand that. I've also recently had a couple of people pop off to me that our relationships are unhealthy or toxic or abusive, simply because we don't have quote-unquote timeouts. And that is a concerning phrasing, because what I think they are trying to get at is the idea that you should be able to express your thoughts and feelings and concerns in a safe environment to your partner. And that is absolutely true. And if you don't have that, then you have passed beyond kink into abuse. But that doesn't require, and I don't think it's helpful to newer submissives, or dominants for that matter, to be told that if you don't take time out or step out of your role, that it's toxic or abusive or what have you. I don't have an out of my role. It doesn't exist. And I don't know how to get people to understand that.
No, my role, I almost even have a problem with the word role a lot of times, because that implies characters, that implies different scenes and scenarios, and it's not a role for me. It's just who I am. And you would never ask a doctor to step outside of being a doctor, or a teacher to don't you have times that you step outside of your role, or and we don't consider those things toxic, because that's just who they are. Well, this is who I am. It's not a role. It's not a scene. It's not a game. It's simply who I am from the time I wake up in the morning until I go to bed at night.
I used to say that It wasn't something that I do. It's something that I am. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And believe me, I'm not saying that if it's something you do, it's wrong, because that's absolutely valid and fine and okay if that's what it is for you. But understand that for those of us that are 24/7 TPE like we are, it isn't something that we do. It isn't a part that I'm playing. It isn't a game that I'm participating in. It's not about a scene or an encounter. It's every minute of every day, from the minute I open my eyes to the minute I close them again. It is. There is no outside. There is no time out from this dynamic for us. And that is important to note, because I want to be very clear that if what you are referring to and what you mean to refer to is to say that people should have a right and an ability to express themselves in a safe way, then you are absolutely correct. That is something that you should have. But let's be clear, I do.
Oh, yes.
I am absolutely okay to say to him, hey, this is concerning me, or I have some questions about this. Can we talk about this? And we will talk about it. That is how it works. It's not a matter of me not being able to express those concerns or those feelings, because I absolutely can. I just
and do. Now, granted, he is not going to take well to me hollering and screaming and throwing a fit or a tantrum because I don't like this role or that role or the way this is going or that is going. That's not going to work well in my home. However,
it wouldn't work well there either.
I totally have the platform to stand on to go to him and say, this is concerning me. Or, I don't care for the way this is going or this is sounding, or, I really think we need to sit down and have a discussion about this and maybe where we can compromise. And never once have I had him look at me and be like, you know what, no, that's not a thing that happens. He respects my opinion. He respects what I have to say, just like any other good husband, master should.
We have conversations where I can say, I am feeling this thing. And, we did this just recently, and I won't get into what it was about because I'm not trying to air our laundry on the air. But it was something that was concerning me. It was something that I was feeling, and it was bothering me, and it was upsetting me. And so I sat down and I said, can we talk about this? And I very politely, respectfully said to him, this, and this, when these things happen, I feel this way. And I'm not accusing you of attempting to make me feel that way, but that is how I feel when this happens. Can we discuss this? And he absolutely sat and listened and said, okay, you know what? That's not what that's intended to convey. However, I didn't think about that, and I can see why that would feel that way to you. How about this? And that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. And because he loves me, and because he respects me, when I say to him, hey, I really need to talk to you about this. This is bothering me. We're going to have a conversation about it. Politely, calmly, respectfully, because I am so
It might not be at that very moment, but it's going to be. And, they, at least yours and mine, because I'm very aware of, they are very good about, if they can't, in that very moment, literally saying, okay, well, we have to do this and this, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to, it's a serious thing to them when we have a concern, when we have a need, when we have an opinion that, we feel like we need to voice.
And so, yes, that is important. And if your partner is not giving you that ability, whether you are vanilla or any flavor of kinky, that is a problem. Let's be very clear. That is something that every partner, every submissive should absolutely have. And if you don't, then that is a problem. However,
that is toxic.
That is not the case here. And it doesn't require or need you to say, in this moment, I am not submissive. I can do that as a submissive.
Yeah.
And I can do that as a slave. I can say to him, Master, can we talk about this? And it will be respected because, and that I think does go back to that sort of Christian submission sort of thing. He does view himself as the head of the household, as the protector, as the one with some responsibility for these concerns. And so if I say to him, I'm having a concern, he's going to take that seriously. It matters. And
I think that's another thing, too, that in this day and age, that's where the word toxic comes up, because women are really pushing more for that independence and that, and they feel like answering to someone else is toxic.
And it is. I think that is a big part of it. I think, and I hate to sort of define whether or not I am. I hate to define it as being sort of anti-feminist because I'm not. I do believe in what feminism stood for and was originally about. However,
I'm going to have to go into your profile and look. I'll call you right back.
That means that
Bye-bye.
That is a factor that a lot of sort of modern day women, I think, have gotten away from that sort of attitude, and they sort of fall into the idea that, well, he's telling you what to do, that means it's toxic. And it isn't always.
No.
And it doesn't have to.
Now, I'm going to be honest. My master will look at me on a daily basis and question if I've taken my medicine. He will question what I have eaten that day. But as my sister, she can vouch for the fact that I am the type of person that gets so busy, I simply forget a lot of times to eat. I forget to take my meds at scheduled times. It's, yes, he's telling me what to do. He's telling me, go get something to eat. Or he's looking at me and saying, go take your meds. Or put a jacket on before we go out of the house. So, yes, he is looking at me and telling me what to do. However, it comes from a great place of love. From, he doesn't want me to be sick because I haven't eaten or missed my meds. He doesn't want me to be cold when we go out and do things. And, it's not, I think a lot of times they see it as toxic or abuse, or, well, he doesn't, want you to pick out your own clothes, or he wants you to eat when he tells you to, and it doesn't come from that place at all. It comes from, I want to ensure, I love you enough that I want to ensure that you're okay. And when he thinks more about, did Munchkin eat today and did she eat something decent, then, taking time to worry about something for him, that in itself shows a great deal of love.
And, I think I should kind of chime in on that, because in our house it's often, not always, but often kind of the opposite. I rarely need to be reminded to eat lunch or, things like that. But occasionally he does. And
yep.
I think it's important to distinguish the fact that I explained this just recently to somebody online, and I thought it was important to kind of talk about. Understand that TPE, and in particular Christian-based TPE, doesn't mean that he takes control of every area of life. It means he can. It doesn't necessarily mean that he does. And that is an important distinction, because he could decide at any minute that he wanted control of whatever area, But he doesn't always, because sometimes he's like, you know what, it would be easier for me, if you take control of this thing. There are certain things I do that would seem much more in control or dominant in some way, simply because that is a way to serve him. And that is what Christian submission at its core, I think, is about, is that taking it very, very literally to be his helpmate. And that means sometimes that I take control of this area because he has asked me to do so. And that is very different from being out of my role, so to speak, which I agree with you. I don't really like that term, but I don't have a better one yet. Yes. But it doesn't mean I'm being out of my position. It simply means that I'm doing something that he has wanted me to do, because I am his helpmate at the end of the day. I am the one in his corner. I am the, support to use gaming terms. I'm the support to his tank. And
the Bible does say that we are to be the helpmate. We were literally made from a bone in their side, because we were designed to walk beside them and to assist them and to help them in everything it is that they do. Every aspect of life, we are designed. And I think that's another thing that has gotten caught up in this abusive, toxic thing, is that a lot of women have forgotten. They're so determined that they can do everything that a man can do, and, I don't need anyone to do for me, that they're forgetting that we were made as two halves of a whole. We were not made to be a whole on our own, and neither were they. We are made to be different.
My dad once told me when I was younger, and it was profound, and it has stuck with me to this day. He told me that one of the best pieces of advice he gave me about marriage is to say that in a marriage, 1 and 1 does not equal 2 anymore. 1 and 1 equals 1. Because we are both individuals, yes, but the whole, the one that we make, is greater than either of us and contains bits of each of us.
Yes.
And I think that is absolutely beautiful and profound, that 1 and 1 doesn't make 2 anymore. 1 and 1 makes 1. We are a unit. We are a team. And I think that has somehow gotten lost. We have become the one group of people. We as a community, the kink community, sort of decided a long time ago that we didn't like being shamed for our kinks, and as long as it was between consenting adults, that other people shouldn't shame us for them, and I absolutely agree with that. However, it has somehow gotten twisted along the way that it's okay to do it this way, this way, this way, this way, but not that way. And that is absolutely not okay.
No, it is not okay for anyone to tell another person how they should think, how they should believe, how they should live their life, and it's just not. It's not okay. Even if you truly don't believe the way that they do, it is not okay for you to take it upon yourself to tell them that it's wrong for them.
And, if you are only on the weekends and only in the bedroom type, that is okay. That is valid. That is a valid way and reason to do what you do. If you are a little, and I know several that are, if you are a little who is working through some personal trauma in your past, and this is something that helps you with that, that is valid. That is a valid reason and motivation for doing what you do. So is mine. And I am who I am, and what I do is no more or less valid than what anyone else does. And I think that has somehow, it became very, very important to me. The minute I got told that my relationship was toxic and abusive and unhealthy, and that I believed that the Bible supported beating your spouse, and I'm going, I don't know where you think you get off telling me what I believe, but...
No, I was horrified.
I know that there are other ways to do it, and I know there are other ways that have become very popular of late. These things shift and change in cycles. Like I said, I've been at this for 18 years. It's been a long time, and I've watched it cycle around a lot. And the current, I guess, popular way of doing things is not my way, and that's okay. That's fine. But I think we've twisted it somewhere along the way where we've decided that because you don't do it the way I do, you're doing it wrong. And I want to be very clear that I think it's very dangerous, especially the newer submissives. Please do not tell people they're doing it wrong. That's just not okay. As long as they are both consenting adults, then they're not.
What works for them is works for them.
You know, they're not doing it wrong. The only way to do this wrong is without consent. That is wrong. And if you're not both...
And assuming that your way is the one way and the only right way is wrong.
Yes, there is no one true way. There is no one true way. And that was something I heard when I was first starting out, was that there is no one true way to do this. That what you do works for you and what I do works for me. And if that looks different, well, you know, so be it. But there is no one true way to do this. That it doesn't have to look any specific way. It just doesn't. And you're allowed to be who you are as long as, you know, it's not right. It's not wrong to be a brat, for example. I am not, but it's not wrong to be one. The only time it's wrong to be a brat is if your partner did not consent to having a brat and you are forcing it upon them. That's not okay. And if your partner does not consent to 24/7 and you are attempting to force them into it, that's wrong. But as long as both parties are on board and have consented to what you're doing, then you know what? Do you, boo-boo, as we say at my house. Do you, boo-boo, do you.
If it works for you, then it works. And we have a saying at my house, if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
And so I think the whole reason I wanted to do this episode was, like I said, it was specifically to say, let's talk about kink shaming. Let's talk about bias. Let's talk about bigotry. And you know what? Bias and bigotry, not okay. And I don't care what area of life you're in. If you're biased against people because of their skin color or their gender or their country of origin, those are bad things. These are not okay. And if you're biased against someone's method of submission because you don't share it, that's no less bad. And, you know, abuse is abuse, and if abuse is happening, it should be called out in all forms. But that's not specific to Christian submission. It's not specific to biblical submission. Abuse is a problem, period. And it really has very little to do with what someone's faith is at all. And so, you know, this is going to feed into the sort of next episode where I want to kind of talk about pitfalls and misconceptions and danger, sort of how not to do 24/7, because I think that's important too. But one of the first lessons on how not to do 24/7 and how not to do kink as a whole is don't decide what works for anybody else. Like, really, seriously, don't. Let people be who they are. Let your freak flag fly and let other people's freak flags fly. And I think a lot of this is related to the fact that it has become acceptable in certain circles to sort of hate on religious beliefs as a whole. And that's ugly. And I don't like seeing it infect the kink community. I really don't.
No.
We're supposed to be a big tent. We're supposed to be accepting. We love everybody and all of our weird, freaky, weird combinations. And I don't want to see it become an issue where, you know, you're allowed to sort of despise other people's forms of submission, you know. And if you don't believe what we believe, that's fine. It really is. I promise. And, you know, if you run into a discussion about this and, you know, do you remember when our mothers used to tell us if you didn't have anything nice to say? Let's all try to remember that too. And, you know, if I see a discussion online about being a brat, I scroll on past it. Honestly, I really do, because I have nothing positive to add to this conversation. It's not a lifestyle that I subscribe to. And so I don't chime in, because it doesn't have anything to do with me, and nothing I say is going to be helpful. And I don't understand why we, as a subset of the kink community, are not afforded that same respect. And I wanted to get on my soapbox a little bit about it.
At the end of the day, as long as you're not hurting anyone else and no one is hurting you, then do what works.
You know, be who you are and let other people be who they are. And as long as all parties are consenting adults who have gone into this enthusiastically consenting to this is what I want, then you know what? Do you, boo-boo. Do you.
Yeah.
I am absolutely down with that, even if it's not what I do. Like I said, you're a brat and you got a brat tamer dominant, by all means, do it. Go for it. If you are submissive only in the bedroom and only on the weekends because that's what works for you, by all means, do that. It doesn't work for me, but, you know, that's okay. I need to make sure that other people understand that, you know, no form of kink needs to be shamed. We don't want to be shamed other vanilla folk. Let's not shame other kinky people, please. And so that was sort of, I originally had a different episode planned, like I said, for this week, but this came up and I felt like it was really vitally important that we get this kind of out there and talk
Absolutely.
about it.
Because, yeah, I was horrified when someone, and that's literally what it was shaming. They attempted to shame you, not only because you're my sister, but as a submissive myself. It horrified me to hear somebody take bits and pieces and form an opinion and try to form an opinion of my religion and my submission that they clearly had no idea about.
And if you want to know more about what we do and how we do it, and if it's not familiar to you, that is
Please
absolutely okay. And just ask. We'll tell you. And
one
of us. You can contact either one of us, and we will happily tell you exactly what we believe and how we practice what we practice. And I will be very clear that even amongst Christian submissives, even amongst religious submissives, our way is not the only way. And other people do it differently. But I can tell you how I do it. And I think we can close it for here, sis, but I think next week I want to kind of touch on some of those pitfalls and dangers and misconceptions, because I think this is going to feed right into that a little bit.
Right.
We'll talk about, yes, slaves have safe words and all of that good jazz, but this was something that it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode probably, but I think it needed to be said. So.
And we will talk to you soon.